All right, so get ready, because we're about to take a deep dive into some seriously thought-provoking stuff today.
Yeah.
Just imagine, you're trying to wrap your head around like why American society keeps bumping into the same problems over and over again. And you stumble upon two books that try to explain this.
Okay, I'm listening.
One of the books is saying it's all about education. Well, not just education, more like um, the miseducation, of specific groups of people.
Interesting. What about the other book?
The other one, it claims the answer is in the fundamental differences that exist between different racial groups.
Two very different perspectives. Sounds like a fascinating deep dive.
Yeah, right. It's going to be wild. So the first book we're looking at is The Miseducation of the Negro by Dr. Carter G. Woodson, published in 1933.
In 1933, correct.
And then we'll be jumping back a bit to 1916 to grapple with The Passing of the Great Race by Madison Grant.
Ah, yes. Those dates are super important. Grant was writing during a period of immense upheaval, a massive immigration, rapid industrialization, and a whole lot of anxiety swirling around about national identity.
Oh, I see. So basically the perfect context for Grant's argument that that the Nordic race is superior and that its decline is the root of, well, basically all evil.
Exactly. He saw pretty much all the changes happening in society at the time as, like, these direct threats to the purity and dominance of the supposed master race, the Nordics.
So hold on, let me get this straight. Grant actually believed in a hierarchy of races? Like, for real?
Yes, he placed Nordics at the very top, believing they had superior intelligence, better morals, and just natural leadership qualities.
What? No way!
Oh, yeah. He even used physical traits, things like the shape of someone's skull, their eye color, even their height as evidence, quote unquote, to back up his claims of Nordic superiority.
That's, wow. It's pretty disturbing, honestly, to think that, someone could even believe that.
It really is. And it's even more unsettling when you realize how influential his ideas actually became.
Oh, right.
His book, The Passing of the Great Race, ended up being used to justify some truly awful policies, including things like racist immigration quotas and even forced sterilization programs.
Oh, it's a stark reminder that ideas have consequences, even the ones that seem totally absurd to us now,
Absolutely. It's a good reminder. That's exactly why it's so crucial to understand where these ideas came from and how they gained so much traction in the first place. It's important to remember Grant wasn't writing in some sort of vacuum. He was reflecting and amplifying anxieties that were already present in society.
Right, right. Okay, so then comes Woodson in 1933, right in the middle of the Great Depression. He's looking at the same question that Grant was wrestling with, the whole why are there these persistent problems in American society thing. But Woodson is looking through a completely different lens.
Totally different.
He's focused specifically on the African-American experience. And he's saying, wait a minute, hold on. The issue isn't some kind of inherent inferiority. It's a system that was built to limit opportunities, to crush aspirations, really.
And Woodson takes it even further, right? He argues that the system is deliberately designed to miseducate Black people, to make them dependent, subservient.
He really goes after the education system of his time, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's basically saying it's all about forcing Black people to imitate white culture instead of allowing them to cultivate their own unique talents and strengths.
Exactly. And he uses the term miseducation really deliberately. He criticizes any curriculum that prioritizes European history over the history of Black people. And he points out the disconnect that's happening between Black intellectuals and the masses.
Right.
And he even points to the influence of white-dominated religious institutions in continuing this cycle of miseducation.
He even gives that powerful example of a Black student at Western Reserve University who dedicates himself to researching the sayings of his people. And Woodson holds him up as an example of what education should be, right? Something that's relevant to Black lives and experiences, something that that empowers, not something that tries to force assimilation.
It's a really compelling contrast to the kind of education Grant seems to be advocating for, an education focused on maintaining those racial hierarchies and reinforcing the dominance of, well, a select few.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Despite their completely different perspectives, both Grant and Woodson end up talking about economic disparity. It's almost like they're both looking at the same problem but seeing totally different causes, different roots.
I know, it's so fascinating. Grant attributes any economic success to racial traits. He's basically saying that Nordics are inherently better at business and innovation just because of their race. And of course, he's super worried about inferior groups displacing Nordics, leading to economic ruin.
Right. And Woodson is like, nope, you've got it all wrong. He says that black people struggle economically not because of their race, but because of limited opportunities, because of exploitation, really.
Yeah.
And he even criticizes some black professionals for not doing more to support black businesses and to uplift their communities.
It's wild. Two completely different explanations for the same problem in society. One rooted in this belief in racial hierarchies, the other pointing to systemic racism, deliberate oppression. It just shows how deeply connected race and economics were and still are in the American story. It's almost like they're both looking at like this giant elephant in the room, right? But each is focusing on completely different parts of it.
Okay, I love that analogy, the elephant in the room. It's perfect. It really makes you think, like, why are these two guys coming from such opposite viewpoints, both so focused on economic disparity?
Hmm. That's a good question. Maybe it's because they were both writing at times when economic anxiety was like really high. Grant during this time of massive change and this feeling that Nordics were losing their dominance, and Woodson writing during the Depression, which obviously hit black communities extremely hard.
Right. It's like they're both tapping into this deeper fear, a societal fear, the fear of losing ground, of being overtaken, of not having economic stability. And that fear ends up getting projected onto other races.
Exactly. And that brings us to another interesting point where they kind of converge, even though, again, their motivations are completely different. Both Grant and Woodson believe that leadership is, like, essential for societal progress.
But of course, they have totally different ideas about what kind of leadership is actually best.
Mm.
Grant is basically saying, just leave it to the Nordics. He thinks they're like these natural-born leaders, and that democracy actually weakens their influence.
He actually argues that democracy allows, quote, inferior races to gain power, which he sees as a direct threat to the advancement and stability of society.
Wait, so he's basically like anti-democracy?
Well, essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
He believes it dilutes the power of the, quote, best race. It's a pretty elitist and anti-democratic stance, even for back then.
Wow. Woodson, of course, had a completely different take on leadership. He sees it as a tool for empowerment. He is critical of some black leaders who he feels are just imitating white models and neglecting their communities. Yeah. But he's still a big advocate for strong, educated black leadership that can uplift the race and promote self-sufficiency.
Right, and that's a key difference. Grant is looking at leadership as a way to keep those existing power structures in place, while Woodson sees it as a way to, like, dismantle those structures and create something more just and fair.
It's like they're looking at the same chessboard but playing two totally different games.
That's a great way to put it. And it should make you, the listener, think about what you look for in a leader. What qualities make someone an effective leader? Are those qualities actually tied to their race, or are they something else entirely?
Okay, this is something I definitely didn't expect. Both Grant and Woodson warn against blindly imitating dominant cultures.
Right. But of course, their reasons are like light years apart. Grant sees it as a threat to the purity of the Nordic race. He thinks mixing with other groups waters down their superior qualities. It all comes back to this obsession he has with racial hierarchies and Nordics staying on top.
Woodson, on the other hand, he believes that mimicking white culture actually stifles the potential and the unique talents that African Americans have. He wants education to celebrate black history and black culture, black identity. He's not about assimilation, he's about empowering people.
And again, we see that interesting parallel. Grant is all about separation, about preservation, about Nordics staying pure so they can, stay in control. And Woodson is calling for like independent development, self-reliance. It's a path to black advancement. They have totally different end goals, but they both see imitation as this dangerous trap.
So here we have these two authors writing decades apart, but both struggling with the same massive questions. Why does American society have these problems? What does race have to do with it? And how do we create a better future? And their answers couldn't be more different. But, there are these surprising moments where they agree.
It's like they're both trying to figure out this complicated thing, America, but they're coming at it from totally opposite ends.
What I find so interesting is that the issues they're talking about, race, education, the economy, leadership, we're still dealing with these things today.
It shows how relevant those questions still are and how much they still shape how we understand ourselves in society.
Okay, so we've talked about their differences and their unexpected points of agreement, and we've talked about the history that shaped their thinking. But where does all this leave us? What are the big takeaways here?
Well, even though they have such different views of the world, both Grant and Woodson end up giving us calls to action. They're both saying, each in their own way, here's what we have to do to fix this.
Ooh, I like that. Tell me more.
So Grant, remember, he's worried about the decline of Nordic dominance. So he's urging Nordics to, remember how superior they are and to do whatever it takes to keep their power. He's basically saying, like, wake up and fight before it's too late.
It's kind of sad, in a way. He's so scared of being replaced, of losing control, that he can't see any other way forward.
Right. And then you have Woodson, who's urging African Americans to embrace self-reliance, to build their own institutions and create their own educational systems that, really cultivate their talents and celebrate their heritage. It's this call to action that's all about hope, about empowerment. It's about believing that Black people have the power to change their own future.
And that's a message that's still powerful today. It's about taking control, about owning your story, and creating a better future, for yourself and your community. And what's really amazing is that both of these calls to action, even though they're coming from totally different places, like they both kind of highlight how important it is to have agency. It's about understanding that you, the listener, you have a role to play in making a more just and equal world.
Yeah, it's about understanding your place in society, looking at your own assumptions and biases, and working toward positive change. It doesn't matter if you're more inspired by Grant's call to preserve or by Woodson's call to dismantle. The main message is the same. Be active. Don't just sit back and watch.
So we've spent some time with these two, let's be honest, wildly different views on race and how it all plays into American society. Grant, he's all about racial hierarchies. And Woodson, he's emphasizing how education can be a tool for empowerment. They clearly don't agree on a lot. But did you pick up on any of the unexpected places where they actually do agree?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like both Grant and Woodson talk about the importance of economic empowerment and self-reliance. And that should get us thinking, whose interests are really being served by the way things are set up right now, who's benefiting from inequality, and who's suffering because of it.
Exactly. It's like they're both admitting that the whole system is rigged. They just have totally different ideas about how to fix it.
And that's where things get really interesting, right? Because it makes us ask ourselves, like, what would a truly just and fair society look like? What would it actually take to create a system where everyone has a real chance to succeed no matter where they come from?
It's a huge question, right?
Yeah.
And these two books, even though they were written so long ago, they're still wrestling with it in ways that feel, I don't know, incredibly relevant today. Race, education, the economy, leadership. We're still struggling with these things as a society.
That's exactly why we do this deep dive, to get people thinking critically, to question their assumptions, and to consider different perspectives even, or maybe especially, when they make you a little uncomfortable.
Exactly. So to wrap things up, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final thought. It's something to kind of chew on as you keep exploring these complicated issues. What if, instead of focusing so much on racial differences as the cause of society's problems, we shifted our focus?
Yeah, like what if we really put our energy into dismantling systems of oppression, whether they were intentionally created or not, that lead to inequality? Systems that hold back certain groups while giving advantages to others just because of their race or where they came from.
It's a powerful question to consider. Just imagine a society where everybody has the opportunity to reach their full potential. Not because of their race, but because the system is designed to help everyone, not just a select few. It's something to think about.
It definitely is. And I think that brings us to the end of our deep dive.
It has been a challenging, definitely insightful, and hopefully a thought-provoking conversation. Thanks for being here with us as we explored the ideas of Carter G. Woodson and Madison Grant. Until next time, keep asking those tough questions and keep diving deep.